Devil Spire Falls is an open-world sandbox RPG currently in early access that aims to be far more ambitious than its predecessor, Devil Spire. Gone are the 2D sprites and assets in favor of a world procedurally generated in full 3D where you're free to destroy whatever or whoever you want. My name's Johnny Bueno, and let's take a look at Devil Spire Falls. First things first, let's generate our world. This literally only includes creating a name and setting the size of your world, so it's really not that complex. I named my world Buenotopia and left the world size at the default, which is notably less than half of the maximum possible size you can create. In my opinion, the default world size feels like more than enough once you're in the game, but if you truly want a massive world, you can let that slider rip and generate an absolute behemoth. Something I thought was pretty neat was how during the loading process you can see all of the various dungeons and villages individually being generated and placed into your world. These all come with incredibly fantasy RPG names like Neversphere Dungeon or the Town of Darkwatch. Next up is character creation, where you select your character's name, class, backstory, race, and gender. Class will determine your starting equipment and skills, like the Deserter starting with the typical sword and board with a set of armor, or the Blasphemer who's more magic-oriented. Backstory determines your starting area and main quest objective, though the Mysterious Stranger appears to be the only one available right now, and the Mysterious Stranger's objective is, of course, to conquer the Devil Spire. Since that's the namesake of the game, this leads me to believe that future backstories will have more tame options like start a family or donate to charity. For race, we have three options: human, feline, and reptilian, with the latter two having unique benefits and drawbacks. Felines have the ability to see in the dark but can't wear head armor, and reptilians have enhanced swimming, among other perks, but seem to have a hard time getting along with others in the world. Humans, on the other hand, have no drawbacks, but also don't have any unique boons that set them apart, perfect for the boring roleplayer like me. I selected a human for my race and the excommunicate class, which appears to be some variation of the traditional priest role, and jumped into the game. And here it is, the land of Buenotopia, or at least an open field in the land of Buenotopia, as this is likely where most players will start before discovering any significant landmarks. If you want, you can collect resources from pretty much any plant in the area, or you can start searching for one of the many towns and villages littering the world. This is pretty simple, as one look at your minimap shows that dungeons are indicated by a red dot and villages by a green dot. And this is really where Devil Spire Falls' sense of exploration kicks in. You're free to go anywhere you want with no guides beyond your one main objective and no restrictions. If you want to pillage the nearby dungeon for loot, go for it. If you want to also pillage the nearby village for loot, go for it. You're not required to be an upstanding citizen in this game, but I should mention that there are negative implications to being a complete animal around NPCs with the game's various social structures, which we'll get into later. Graphically, Devil Spire Falls goes for a very straightforward approach with a simple, blocky aesthetic, which didn't matter to me too much as I feel like the game's charm is in its gameplay. However, it's clear the game is in early access as there isn't much variation in style for both villages and dungeons. Most of the time upon discovering a new village, you'll be seeing the same huts or simple wooden houses you saw in the last village, and I'm pretty sure the dungeon exteriors also use the same exact stone textures, even if the layouts are uniquely generated. So there's still some work to be done to make each locale feel more unique from one another. But I do love how you can always see the Devil Spire in the distance no matter where you're at in the world. It's like this massive looming structure serving as a constant reminder of your ultimate objective. It's a really cool touch, and even in my world, it was a surprisingly long journey to reach it. I won't say much else about the Spire, but I do recommend you come 100% prepared if you plan on tackling it. Moving on to gameplay, as I mentioned earlier, you're free to do whatever you want in true sandbox fashion while keeping your main objective in mind. Fight monsters, gather materials, terrorize the locals, it's really up to you. The game's tutorial does tell you to find a village first, which I would also recommend as a means to get introduced to the game's crafting and NPC disposition systems. The game does feature a convenient fast travel system as well, so you don't have to worry entirely about hoofing it everywhere, especially should you choose to generate a larger world. Just be aware that enemies can ambush you while fast traveling and interrupt your journey. This happened to me more often than not because I guess these mushroom men really had a bone to pick with me. One of the first things you'll likely be doing is collecting resources from the various trees, rocks, and other flora in your vicinity. I felt like Devil Spire Falls is a game of survival just as much as it is a game of resources. You'll need to stay stocked up with anything and everything, especially if you plan on making your long journey to the Spire. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Nothing goes to waste. As for combat, well, it's kind of slow, or it is at first before you've invested any stat points that increase your attack speed. I personally don't mind it, but if you're expecting some fast-paced first-person action combat, you might be disappointed. Otherwise, melee combat consists of your typical first-person melee combat affair of having specific keys for blocking, parrying, dodging, or kicking enemies. You could utilize all of these to become a combat king, or play like me and opt to use a hit and run strategy of using all of your stamina to attack and then running away until you get your stamina back. Call me a coward if you want, but I don't think I lost a single fight with this strategy. Fortunately, Devil Spire Falls features a fairly hefty variety of weapons to experiment with, especially for such an early version of the game. You can choose from maces, flails, swords, your own fists, throwing weapons, guns, bows, and more. Every weapon also has their own unique swing speeds, weight, damage, and so on. I spent my playthrough experimenting with pretty much everything, and despite my character's priestly beginnings, I found myself enjoying blasting everything with a gun the most. There's just something about bringing gunpowder to a sword fight that makes me feel incredibly powerful. Although it's important to note that every weapon and pretty much every other item in the game has a set durability and will eventually break unless repaired, which is why it's always helpful to carry more than one weapon in case your primary one breaks during a long journey away from town. Beyond that, there's light and heavy armor options and accessory slots to be filled that grant various bonuses to your core stats or other things like max equipment load or weapon wind-up speed. You can even equip your horse with armor, no DLC required, to keep your trusty steed protected from anything other than a steep cliff. There are plenty of options for magic as well, even if I didn't experiment with magic too much myself, but I noticed a wide variety of healing, buffing, and offensive spells. These are learned permanently through grimoires or can be used as one-offs through spell scrolls. There's even an entire skill called spellmaking dedicated to crafting spells with custom effects, so needless to say there's plenty of options should you wish to build a more mage-like character. You'll need all this gear when exploring the game's many dungeons, though I found dungeon size can vary quite intensely. I did a few dungeons that literally consisted of a few treasure chests and nothing else, while others were complete labyrinthian horrors full of bandits and traps. So you never really know what you're going to get when entering a dungeon, but I suppose that's the whole point of everything being procedurally generated. And they can admittedly get pretty intense. I mentioned carrying more than one weapon for a reason, as I broke many weapons mid-fight while dungeon delving and was forced to scrounge for whatever else I could find to carry on. So earlier I mentioned an NPC disposition system, which I honestly think plays a pretty large role in the game. I think the simplest way to describe it is you do things for NPCs and they do things for you. Completing quests they give you, trading them items, or chatting with them for a bit earns you positive disposition for the NPC you're interacting with. Disposition can then be spent to ask them where a specific NPC or town is located, or even have them teach you skills. Chatting is the slowest but cheapest way to raise disposition and serves as a type of minigame where you pick from a number of topics that lead into certain emotions for that specific NPC. Basically, the goal is to choose a string of topics with positive disposition multipliers while avoiding the negative ones. This, combined with the entire disposition system, adds a significant layer of complexity to the NPCs inhabiting your world and actually gives you a reason to talk and interact with them. Even beyond that, there's an entire faction system where each NPC you interact with belongs to multiple factions, and you can see how they rank in each group. If you want to join one, you can find which NPC ranks highly in a specific faction and raise your disposition with them to be able to join. You can even slay the leader of a faction to dissolve it completely. Honestly, this is one of the most impressive aspects of Devil Spire Falls. You can tell the developer put a lot of work into giving the game social structures to make it feel more alive, which truly isn't an easy task to do when everything is randomly generated. Super cool, and I can't praise it enough. And one last thing I want to call out for gameplay is that the game also features a building system where you can create your own camp or town. This can come in handy as you can create your own crafting stations instead of having to search random villages for a furnace or anvil. I would say this actually makes building quite essential, and there's even a specific skill designated to it. This truly wouldn't be a sandbox RPG if you weren't able to create your own sand castles. For progression, during your journey, you will level up your character through defeating enemies, learning skills, or completing quests. Upon gaining a level, you can add points to stats including strength, endurance, agility, vitality, intelligence, wisdom, and dexterity. I could go through and explain each stat individually, but if you played any RPG ever, you probably already know what each stat does. Personally, I put some stats into a bit of everything as I felt like they were all useful in their own way. For example, while I initially focused my stat investment on strength and vitality for a beefier build, I still put points into agility for faster run speed. After all, the lands of Buenotopia were vast, and I needed the speed necessary to traverse its glorious hills and plains. Also, I did like that the map seems to show the general level of enemies and NPCs as you scroll through it. From what I could tell, levels increase the further you are from your initial spawn point, so it's pretty easy to tell when you're out of your depth with a quick glance at the map. Other than leveling up your character though, you'll level up individual skills by performing specific actions related to that skill, similar to, say, the Elder Scrolls series. There's 35 skills in the current version of the game, ranging from movement skills like athletics and acrobatics to crafting skills like spellmaking and smithing, in addition to the obvious combat skills. Each skill has 10 levels and you get a new perk every time you level up a skill, and each new perk feels genuinely useful too, with some being borderline required to obtain when you start a new game. For example, level 2 bartering lets you know the exact price of items when bartering with NPCs. Before that, you just flat out can't see the price of items and you need to blindly buy and sell items without knowing their true value. Leveling speech can also be incredibly handy, as it will allow you to recruit NPCs to follow you, up to a total of 3 followers. I found even having just one NPC with you can make a significant difference in combat situations, so speech definitely isn't something that should be overlooked. Just watch out for friendly fire, because your followers will get real upset with you and decide to leave if you're not careful. Although to be honest, I feel like my mage buddy I recruited was just being a little dramatic. That being said, there really is plenty of incentive to experiment and level as many skills as you can. My personal favorite was performance, which you can level up by playing instruments near NPCs. Sure, your musical talents may not be the best at the start of the game, but if you're lucky, or if they take enough pity on you, they'll drop items on the ground for the taking. Like I said earlier, you can terrorize the NPCs, but that doesn't entirely need to be through violent intent. Devil Spire Falls proves to be a truly engaging, expansive title and an incredibly ambitious sequel. While there may be a few oddities here and there due to the game's early access state, I honestly didn't encounter anything truly game-breaking during my time in Buenotopia. Regardless, the developer appears to be highly dedicated to the game, with content updates and bug fixes rolling out at a rapid pace. I can't wait to see how Devil Spire Falls progresses, and if you're even remotely interested in sandbox RPGs, I recommend checking this one out. That's all for now though, so if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like or sharing your thoughts on Devil Spire Falls in the comments below. I appreciate every bit of interaction and support, as I love making videos just like this one. So please consider subscribing to support the channel, and as always, thank you for watching.